felt like life was quietly whispering to you, nudging you towards something bigger, but you just couldn't quite grasp what it was saying? Well, you're not alone. The story you're about to dive into explores exactly this, those subtle yet powerful moments when our lives start hinting at deeper truths, pushing us toward a path we never expected. It's about ordinary people discovering extraordinary purpose in ways they never saw coming. But here's the thing, the most intriguing twist in this journey is revealed only at the very end, changing everything you thought you knew. Stick around to find out how each piece comes together, and trust me, you'll want to see how it all unfolds. If these kinds of soul-stirring stories resonate with you, please hit subscribe to support our channel. We've got plenty more thoughtful scripts and inspiring insights just waiting to be shared. Stepping into the final phase of this journey, we come face to face with one of the most paradoxical truths of awakening. The closer we draw to unity, the more acutely we may feel the lingering traces of separation. After all, the layers shed identities deconstructed and soul callings embraced. There can still be moments of doubt or loneliness, reminders that the world at large hasn't instantly caught up with our internal evolution. It is in this delicate space between the revelation of oneness and the reality of a still divided world that our commitment to love and truth is most profoundly tested. On a personal level, you may notice that even after multiple breakthroughs and expansions, everyday life continues to offer triggers that put your newfound wisdom to the test. An unkind remark, a traffic jam, or an unexpected bill can reignite old patterns of frustration or fear. The difference now is that you have cultivated the awareness to notice these responses as they arise. Rather than falling into them unconsciously, you can pause, acknowledge what you feel, and choose how to respond. This seemingly simple practice, mindful response rather than knee-jerk reaction, is in fact a significant demonstration of spiritual embodiment. It shows that your growth isn't just conceptual, it's woven into the fabric of your daily interactions. Within collective movements, the paradox appears just as vividly. On the one hand, we see an explosion of community-based initiatives, people forming eco-villages, mutual aid networks, online gatherings for shared healing, and alternative forms of currency. On the other hand, political polarization, economic inequality, and social fragmentation still run rampant, creating a global tapestry where extraordinary compassion coexists with heartbreaking division. It's common to feel both hope and despair, sometimes within the same news cycle. This duality is not a sign that your vision of unity is naive. Rather, it reveals the magnitude of the human journey toward collective coherence. Even in the face of systemic inertia, every conscious choice you make toward empathy and honesty tips the scales, however subtly, in favor of unity. Mystics have long insisted that external reality mirrors internal states of consciousness. If that principle holds true, then the continuing chaos out there reflects the residual tensions and unhealed traumas within our global psyche. Yet it also means that tangible shifts toward peace and collaboration must begin inside our own hearts. This isn't a call to isolate yourself in endless self-work while ignoring societal problems. Rather, it's a call to approach activism and social transformation from a grounded, heart-centered place. When you carry the frequency of wholeness into your community, whether you're organizing protests, teaching workshops, or simply offering emotional support to friends, you infuse the collective field with a stabilizing energy. Over time, enough people living this way can effect shifts that are not merely cosmetic, but structural. Hence, the paradox of unity amidst division is less of a contradiction than an invitation to hold both truths simultaneously. You can accept that the world remains riddled with conflict while also daring to anchor the vibration of oneness. You can experience fleeting moments of frustration and still commit to love as your guiding principle. True mastery lies in navigating this middle ground, unwavering in your knowledge that all is connected, yet compassionately aware of the difficulties that persist. By doing so, you help bridge the chasm between vision and reality, drawing the collective one step closer to an era where unity is not just a lofty ideal, but a lived experience for all. The tension between the collective's slow pace and your individual acceleration can be especially pronounced when it comes to technology. On one side, modern innovations reflect Aquarian ideals of decentralization, connectivity, and free information flow. The internet, for instance, provides a platform for marginalized voices to be heard, for spiritual teachings to spread, and for creative collaborations to happen across continents. On the other side, the same digital tools can exacerbate surveillance, misinformation, and addictive behaviors. This dual aspect of technology encapsulates the broader paradox of our times. The very instruments that could unite us can also divide us depending on the consciousness with which they are used. For many awakened souls, navigating the digital realm is a tricky dance. It's not uncommon to feel drawn to social media platforms for the purpose of spreading messages of healing or connecting with like-minded individuals, only to find oneself mired in endless scrolls of negativity or comparison. You might start your day with an intention to share an uplifting insight, only to end up drained by the avalanche of conflicting viewpoints. Recognizing this drain doesn't mean rejecting technology outright. Instead, it invites you to cultivate digital discernment, a skill set that includes setting boundaries for screen time, curating the information you consume, and remembering that not every online debate is worth your emotional energy. From a global perspective, technology mirrors the evolutionary crossroads at which we stand. The same blockchain technology that can decentralize finance and empower grassroots communities can also become a tool for large-scale speculation and profiteering. The same artificial intelligence that can solve complex humanitarian issues might also replace jobs or concentrate power in the hands of a select few. The age of Aquarius seeks to democratize power, but the digital sphere shows that technology alone won't suffice. Without a matching elevation in ethics and compassion, technical advances can reinforce old paradigms of dominance and exploitation. Thus, the future of our digital world largely hinges on the consciousness we bring to it. This is where personal alignment becomes a force multiplier. Imagine each individual who's on an awakening journey, approaching technology with responsibility and intentionality. Rather than passively scrolling, they post content that uplifts, they engage in dialogue that enlightens rather than inflames, and they organize virtual gatherings that break down geographical barriers to unity. In essence, they harness the very same digital platforms that sometimes spread toxicity to instead disseminate truth, kindness, and inclusive problem-solving. While it may seem like a drop in the ocean, the collective effect of many individuals making such conscious choices can shift the digital landscape toward a more constructive realm. It's worth noting that fear of technology is itself an outdated pattern. Historically, every major technological leap from the printing press to the telephone has sparked anxieties about social upheaval and moral decay. In hindsight, we see how these inventions also open doors to progress. What's different now is the sheer speed and global reach of modern digital tools, coupled with the existential stakes of planetary crisis. By infusing technology with Aquarian ideals, transparency, collaboration, ethical innovation, we can tip its potential toward global upliftment. The question is whether we will use these tools to replicate the patterns of scarcity and control, or to manifest the frequency of abundance and interconnectivity that the Aquarian age promises. At this juncture, it helps to remember that the shift you're participating in isn't solely a human endeavor. Earth itself is a conscious entity hosting intricate ecosystems brimming with wisdom and intelligence. Indigenous cultures have long acknowledged the planet's living essence, referring to it as Mother Earth or Gaia. They have maintained rituals and ceremonies to honor the sacred interdependence between people and the land. Modern science, too, is inching toward the concept that Earth behaves like a living organism, self-regulating climates, ocean currents, and atmospheric balances. In the age of Aquarius, this recognition of Earth's aliveness isn't just a spiritual sentiment. It becomes an operational principle for how we organize society. If Gaia is living, then environmental destruction isn't merely a technical problem. It's an act of self-harm. If ecosystems are intelligent, then solutions to climate change or resource depletion must arise from a dialogue with nature rather than from attempts to dominate it. This perspective reshapes fields as diverse as urban planning, agriculture medicine, and environmental policy. Instead of imposing top-down methods, we begin to model our technologies and social structures on nature's inherent wisdom. Biomimicry is one example of this approach, replicating patterns observed in flora and fauna to design more efficient and harmonious systems. On a personal level, you might find your spiritual awakening naturally inclines you to spend more time in nature or engage in practices that honor Earth consciousness. Long walks in the forest, grounding routines that involve placing bare feet on the earth, or meditative states of observing waves at the shore can become vital experiences for recalibrating the nervous system. In these moments, you sense how the planet's rhythms resonate with your own biology, how your breath syncs with the greater web of life. Many awakened souls describe feeling held by the earth, an experience that anchors them amidst the turbulence of societal change. However, truly engaging Gaia consciousness goes beyond personal solace. It invites collaborative activism aimed at regenerating ecosystems. You might become involved in local community gardens, marine conservation efforts, or reforestation projects. These are not just pragmatic tasks, but also spiritual endeavors, weaving your awakened perspective into tangible acts of service. While large-scale institutions grapple with policy debates, millions of grassroots initiatives worldwide demonstrate that meaningful progress can be seeded at the local level. This decentralized approach aligns seamlessly with Aquarian values, empowering small, coordinated efforts that collectively yield a significant impact. One might argue that the Earth has weathered countless cataclysms and will ultimately persist regardless of human behavior. Yet, from an awakened vantage point, the question is not about Earth's survival, but about how humans can thrive alongside Gaia's deeper intelligence. Do we want a future where communities live in harmony with forests, rivers, and wildlife? Or one where nature is seen as a resource to be exploited for short-term gain? The spiritual shift unfolding nudges us toward the former, a reciprocal, reverent relationship that sees the planet not as an inert backdrop, but as an active partner in our evolution. By choosing to see Earth as animate, wise, and intimately connected to our own fates, we set the stage for a renaissance in how humanity no longer mere consumers of the Earth's bounty. We become stewards, gardeners, and grateful guests in a vast sacred sanctuary. Another dimension of Aquarian transformation surfaces in the reimagining of economics. The old paradigm often reduces abundance to currency and prizes perpetual growth, regardless of ecological or social costs. Over the past century, many societies have measured success through gross domestic product, GDP, implying that more is always better. Yet awakened perspectives challenge this notion, suggesting that such metrics fail to capture well-being harmony with nature or meaningful communal life. If we accept that we're spiritual beings, then our sense of wealth can't be confined to material accumulation alone. It must also embrace emotional, relational, and spiritual richness. In response, alternative models of exchange are taking root. The rise of sharing economies, time banks, and local currencies reflects a desire to reclaim agency over value creation, emphasizing reciprocity and community resilience. Similarly, movements like degrowth or circular economics question the necessity of endless consumerism and propose lifestyles centered on simplicity, sustainability, and genuine connection. While critics label these ideas idealistic, they resonate with many who have grown weary of a system that equates personal success with buying power. From a spiritual vantage point, money itself is neutral, neither good nor evil. The issue lies in how it's used and the energies that drive its distribution. A system built on scarcity, thinking fosters competition, hoarding, and stress. Conversely, a system aligned with abundance consciousness encourages generosity, collaboration, and innovation that benefits the many rather than the few. In practical terms, cultivating an abundance mindset begins at the personal level. This might mean re-examining your relationship with money, questioning inherited beliefs such as earning a living is a struggle or I must compete to get my share. By dissolving these mental constructs, you free yourself to explore more creative ways of generating and sharing resources. Importantly, transitioning to new economic models can't ignore structural realities like wealth inequality and historical injustices. Talks of abundance mean little if they gloss over the fact that entire communities suffer from systemic marginalization. Aquarian economics then balances visionary thinking with social equity. If you're awakened to a deeper spiritual truth, you're also awakened to the moral imperative of ensuring that resources flow more fairly, enabling all to participate in the collective upliftment. This involves everything from supporting ethical businesses and community investment funds to advocating for policies that rectify imbalances like land reparations or universal basic income depending on one's cultural context. Moreover, creative solutions often blossom where top-down systems falter. Community-based microfinance or cooperative enterprises, for example, allow groups to pool resources, share risks, and distribute rewards more equitably. These grassroots endeavors demonstrate that abundance can flourish without funneling wealth to distant shareholders. At the global scale, the internet enables emerging entrepreneurs to bypass traditional gatekeepers, crowdfunding their ventures and forging new market spaces that emphasize conscience over mere profit. In essence, the Aquarian reimagining of economics calls for a radical shift in our definition of wealth. Rather than simply quantifying money, it urges us to consider factors like ecological health, shared well-being, creative fulfillment, and the spirit of generosity. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but every small step, like supporting a local farmer's market or volunteering in a skill exchange, starts changing the narrative. By weaving these individual choices into collective momentum, we can eventually birth an economic paradigm that nurtures body, mind, and spirit, reflecting our interdependence with each other and with the earth. Hand in hand with economic transformation comes a renaissance in education. For centuries, mainstream schooling in many societies has centered on rote memorization, standardized testing, and top-down instruction. Students were often treated as empty vessels to be filled with state-approved curricula, leaving little room for creativity or individual pacing. From an awakened perspective, this model falls short in preparing young minds for a future defined by rapid change and complex challenges. More critically, it neglects the holistic development of a child's emotional, spiritual, and intuitive faculties. Increasingly, people recognize the need for an education system that nurtures the whole human being. Alternative approaches like Waldorf Montessori, Reggio Emilia, and democratic free schools are slowly gaining traction worldwide. These methods emphasize experiential learning, social collaboration, moral development, and an integrated approach to intellectual and artistic growth. Rather than churning out uniform graduates, they seek to cultivate self-directed learners who retain curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to experiment. Such holistic education aligns with the Aquarian spirit by honoring each child's unique gifts and pace of awakening. Even within traditional schools, innovative teachers are introducing mindfulness programs, project-based learning, and inquiry-driven syllabi to address the hunger for more relevant and engaging content. Some schools adopt yoga or meditation breaks to help students manage stress and foster emotional well-being. These aren't superficial add-ons. They're signs of a deeper shift away from mechanistic views of education toward a recognition that each learner brings inherent wisdom and potential. As these methods prove successful, often resulting in more confident, empathetic, and creative students, skeptics are gradually swayed, paving the way for broader policy changes. On a broader scale, online learning platforms play a dual role. They can perpetuate the old industrial model, replicating standardized courses with little room for creativity, or they can democratize knowledge, allowing learners of all ages to explore fields that spark their curiosity. This latter potential reflects the Aquarian emphasis on decentralized access and self-empowerment. Never before have so many free resources ranging from coding tutorials to spiritual lectures been available with the click of a button. For self-motivated individuals, this is nothing short of revolutionary, enabling them to carve paths of study that blend multiple disciplines, spiritual insights, and real-world applications. But perhaps the most transformative education occurs outside formal institutions. In community workshops, cross-cultural exchanges, or even informal mentorships, learning becomes a shared adventure rather than a chore. When elders teach youth ancestral healing techniques, or when tech-savvy teens help seniors navigate digital platforms, the flow of knowledge transcends generational or cultural barriers. Such grassroots learning fosters a sense of interdependence and mutual respect, qualities vital for thriving in uncertain times. Ultimately, the direction of education in the Aquarian era hinges on a fundamental question: do we see children and learners of all ages as passive subjects to be shaped, or as active agents with profound capacities waiting to unfold? An awakened perspective advocates the latter, insisting that true education is less about control and more about guidance towards self-realization. When students are trusted to follow their curiosities, to question assumptions, and to engage as full participants in their own growth, they emerge not just with academic knowledge, but with the self-awareness and adaptability that are hallmarks of an evolving consciousness. In that sense, the school becomes a microcosm for the larger transformation, one in which each generation better equipped than the last steps forward to co-create a more vibrant and awakened society. The quest for holistic well-being is another core feature of the Aquarian dawn. In times past, healing traditions were often segregated. Modern medicine focused on treating symptoms through pharmaceuticals and surgeries, while alternative practices like herbalism, acupuncture, or energy work remained at the fringes. Although each tradition held valuable pieces, the separation perpetuated a narrow approach. Today, however, integrative medicine and mind-body-spirit paradigms are emerging, weaving together science-based treatments with complementary therapies to address the full spectrum of human health. This synthesis acknowledges that the body, mind, and soul are intimately connected. Emotional traumas, for example, can manifest as chronic pain or autoimmune disorders, while spiritual stagnation can fuel mental distress. Inversely, genuine joy, purposeful living, and spiritual alignment can boost immunity and accelerate recovery. By embracing this interconnectedness, healthcare moves from a reactive model, fixing issues after they appear, to a proactive model that nurtures resilience and vitality from within. Patients become co-creators in their healing journeys, armed not just with prescriptions, but also with mindfulness practices, nutritional guidance, and supportive therapies like massage, acupuncture, or Reiki. On a broader scale, the Aquarian approach encourages communities to tackle the root causes of ill health, such as environmental toxins, stress-inducing work cultures, and inequitable access to nutritious foods. Public health ceases to be a domain of cold statistics and becomes an essential aspect of spiritual and communal care. Grassroots movements already reflect this shift. Urban gardens supplying fresh produce to low-income areas. Mental health advocacy groups forming peer support circles. And apps that track both emotional well-being and physical biomarkers. All these initiatives weave together a tapestry of caring for the individual within the context of a larger, interdependent ecosystem. One of the more radical implications of this integrative perspective is the return to the body as a site of wisdom. For centuries, many spiritual teachings implied that the body was a lesser vehicle, mere flesh separate from the soul. Yet the emerging consciousness sees the body as a sacred instrument, finely tuned to receive intuitive signals and maintain energetic balance. By cultivating a deep, respectful relationship with your physical form through nutrition, movement, breathwork, and even playful exploration, you tap into an intelligence that is older and more primal than any text-based doctrine. This holistic vision also paves the way for greater openness to modalities once dismissed as woo-woo. Modalities like homeopathy, sound healing, crystal therapy, or shamanic journeying are being explored not just by fringe communities, but by individuals and researchers curious about their underlying mechanisms. While skepticism remains important, an awakened mindset refrains from knee-jerk dismissal. Instead, it asks, might there be benefits here that mainstream science has yet to fully comprehend? This curious stance aligns with the Aquarian virtue of open-minded inquiry, inviting diverse perspectives to contribute to a richer understanding of health and healing. As these integrative practices gain acceptance, we inch closer to a vision of healthcare that is truly humane, personalized, and soul-enriching. Imagine hospitals designed with gardens for patient relaxation or insurance policies that cover meditation retreats as preventive care. Envision local healing hubs where doctors collaborate with herbalists and spiritual counselors to craft individualized plans. Though these ideas may sound futuristic, seeds are already sprouting in various parts of the globe. Each initiative, no matter how small, signals a broader change in how we define and pursue well-being. In short, the Aquarian perspective sees healing as a lifelong journey of aligning with wholeness, not just as a fix for the body, but as a harmonious interplay between inner and outer landscapes. The realm of religion, too, is experiencing a fundamental shift. Organized religions have long been pillars of culture and community, providing a moral framework and sense of belonging. Yet they often revolved around hierarchical structures, dogmatic interpretations of sacred texts, and intermediaries who stood between the believer and the divine. While this approach comforted and guided countless souls throughout history, it also stifled personal exploration and sometimes fostered exclusivity or fear-based doctrines. In the age of Aquarius, spiritual seekers increasingly question and reinterpret religious teachings driven by an inner urge to experience the sacred directly rather than through a prescribed set of rules. To understand this phenomenon, one might look at the rise of interfaith dialogues and the growing popularity of non-traditional spiritual practices like mindfulness, Eastern meditation techniques, or indigenous ceremonies. People who once identified strictly with a single religion may now explore multiple paths, studying Kabbalah while practicing yoga, for instance, or attending a Zen retreat after Sunday church. This interspiritual curiosity reflects an Aquarian openness to discovering universal truths beneath the surface differences of ritual and culture. The question shifts from which religion is right to how does each tradition reveal an aspect of the divine. Consequently, new spiritual communities are forming that blend teachings from diverse lineages. Rather than a top-down hierarchy with a singular authority figure, these groups often function more like collaborative circles. Members share insights from personal experiences, whether gleaned in meditation or through life events. The role of a teacher, if one exists, is not to decree absolute truths, but to facilitate each individual's journey of discovery. Spiritual texts are approached as pointers, not final verdicts. In this environment, worship morphs into a shared celebration of mystery. Prayer ritual and chant become tools for inner alignment rather than obligations to appease an external deity. Some argue that this broader spiritual pluralism dilutes tradition or fosters spiritual consumerism where people dabble superficially in multiple paths. However, beneath the surface, sampling lies a sincere desire for immediacy of connection. Many individuals report that they no longer wish to merely hear about the divine, but to feel it coursing through their daily lives. This craving for experiential spirituality, for direct gnosis, echoes ancient mystical threads found in every major religion, threads that institutional power often obscured. Meanwhile, within established religious institutions themselves, a quiet evolution is also underway. Forward-thinking clergy and congregations seek to adapt, emphasizing love, compassion, and service over rigid dogma. Progressive theologians aim to reconcile scientific discoveries like evolution or cosmic vastness with the grandeur of faith. These movements signal that even within traditional frameworks, the Aquarian impulse can breathe fresh life, bridging ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding. Over time, we may see religion become less about adherence to a single story and more about fostering direct encounters with transcendent reality. Sacred spaces might open their doors to all seekers, hosting dialogues across beliefs. The measure of devotion shifts from external conformity to an inner fidelity. Does this practice awaken compassion in me? Does it open my heart to the unity underlying the apparent diversity of life? If so, it becomes a living, evolving expression of the divine rather than a static set of institutional rules. In that sense, the Aquarian age doesn't dismantle religion. It invites it to rediscover its mystical core, transforming from rigid citadels into open temples of consciousness. A significant aspect of Aquarian consciousness is the willingness to embrace paradox and nuance. The old world often thrived on binary thinking, right versus wrong, friend versus foe, spiritual versus secular. But genuine evolution demands that we hold multiple truths simultaneously. Consider the ongoing dialogue around spirituality and science. For generations, these were cast as mutually exclusive realms with devotees on each side dismissing the other. Now, however, frontier researchers and mystical explorers find surprising consonances in areas like quantum physics, neuroplasticity, and even the study of consciousness itself. The emerging viewpoint isn't that science and spirituality are the same. Rather, each offers a different lens that can enrich our total understanding. This capacity to handle ambiguity applies equally to social and political arenas. Ideologies that once divided communities into rigid camps are being questioned as people realize that real-world problems, climate change, economic injustice, mental health crises require nuanced cooperative solutions. Labels like left or right can obscure the subtle layers of local contexts and personal experiences. This doesn't mean we abandon discernment. It means we expand it, recognizing that simplistic narratives rarely capture the full story. The Aquarian spirit calls for bridging differences, focusing on shared goals and crafting multifaceted approaches that honor both individual needs and the collective good. On a personal level, developing comfort with paradox can be both liberating and challenging. Your growth might lead you to acknowledge parts of yourself you once rejected, perhaps your aggression, your fear, or your unfulfilled desires. In awakening circles, there's sometimes a pressure to be only love and light, which can gloss over the importance of shadow work. Authentic enlightenment, however, involves integrating shadow aspects rather than denying them. You realize that within your moral convictions lies the potential for judgment, within your passion for service lies the risk of martyrdom, and within your spiritual aspirations lies the temptation of escapism. Holding these contradictions doesn't negate your progress. It refines it, adding depth to your compassion for yourself and others. This dance with paradox often extends into your relationships. For instance, you might simultaneously love someone deeply, yet recognize that it's time to part ways because you've outgrown each other's paths. Or you may hold strong personal boundaries while still empathizing with the pain that causes someone to act harmfully. These seemingly contradictory stances actually enrich your emotional intelligence, allowing you to respond rather than react. By staying present with complexity, you become a more grounded and nuanced participant in the relationships that shape your life. The Aquarian capacity for nuance also informs how we view personal and collective timelines. Some mystical teachings foresee a grand leap in consciousness that instantly transforms the world, while more pragmatic voices insist on patient generational progress. Both could be true. Sudden breakthroughs often punctuate long periods of incremental change. Holding the paradox means working diligently on day-to-day improvements, helping neighbors, educating children, healing personal wounds, while staying open to the possibility of quantum shifts that can't be predicted by linear logic. In this way, we exist in an ever-expanding present moment where the seeds of future miracles are continually sown through ordinary mindful acts. By welcoming paradox, we align with a vast dynamic nature of reality itself, which resists neat categorizations and instead invites us into a kaleidoscope of perspectives and possibilities. An often overlooked but essential element of the spiritual revolution is humor. In many traditional narratives, enlightenment is depicted as a solemn state of gravity and detachment, yet laughter and play can be powerful catalysts for insight. Observing your own spiritual path, you might recall moments of comedic relief, times when the irony of your ego struggles or the absurdity of certain beliefs struck you as downright hilarious. This is not a trivial point. Humor bridges gaps, disarms tension, and reminds us that the cosmic dance we're in can be joyful as well as serious. From a higher vantage point, human dramas can seem both poignant and amusing. Spiritual teachers across various traditions have used playful anecdotes or clever riddles to illuminate profound truths. Even Zen koans, famous for confounding the linear mind, can spark a laughing realization once the conceptual framework breaks. Indeed, a well-timed joke or a burst of collective laughter can lower defenses and prime the mind for epiphany. It disrupts the rigid hold of our serious self, paving the way for surrender and fresh perspective. That said, humor in the Aquarian context isn't about dismissing pain or mocking sincere efforts. Rather, it's a gentle, unifying force that dissolves the walls of hierarchy and pretense. When a leader, be it a spiritual guide or a community organizer, can lovingly laugh at their own foibles, it signals an authenticity that's both relatable and encouraging. It says, I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. We're learning together. This humility fosters a group dynamic where growth is collective, not competitive, and where errors become learning moments rather than sources of shame. Collectively, we also see comedic voices acting as social critics. Satirists and stand-up comedians often highlight systemic injustices in ways that cut through polarization, inviting audiences to consider new viewpoints. While comedy can be weaponized to belittle, it can also illuminate truths that sober discourse finds hard to penetrate. This comedic activism aligns with Aquarian values. It decentralizes authority, invites critical thinking, and shakes us out of complacency. In your personal life, embracing humor can be an antidote to spiritual rigidity or burnout. As you integrate new insights and strive to live from a place of awakening, you might become overly vigilant, criticizing yourself for every slip, or feeling pressured to maintain a high vibe at all times. But laughter, even at your own missteps, lightens this load. It restores a sense of perspective. You're a divine being on a human journey, stumbling and learning as you go. Chuckling at your quirks, you remember that the universe isn't penalizing you for imperfection. This relaxed mindset can actually accelerate growth because it removes the self-imposed friction of excessive seriousness. Ultimately, humor exemplifies one of the greatest paradoxes of spiritual life. The closer you come to the vast, awe-inspiring reality of the cosmos, the more you realize how playful and light it can be. Profound truths aren't necessarily delivered in stone tablets or solemn rituals. Sometimes they arrive in fits of laughter that echo through the soul. By by weaving humor into your awakening process, you maintain a flexible heart, one that can hold sorrow and joy, reverence and amusement, all at once, reflecting the full tapestry of the human experience on its journey back to unity. In charting these broad sweeps of cultural evolution, from technology to economics, education to religion, healing to humor, a question arises: what is the ultimate vision for humanity? Is it a utopian dream in which all conflict ceases and society attains perfect harmony? Or is the Aquarian age simply about incremental improvements within an inherently complex world? Neither extreme fully captures the nuance. A purely idyllic vision overlooks the reality of shadow and contrast, which continue to spur growth, while a strictly incremental model fails to account for the quantum leaps that consciousness can take when conditions are ripe. A more balanced view suggests that humanity is entering a phase of heightened fluidity where rigid structures, be they political, social, or personal, are increasingly challenged. In that fluid space, new frameworks can crystallize more swiftly than before, provided they resonate with the emergent frequency of authenticity, unity, and interdependence. Imagine a future where global crises prompt unprecedented collaboration across borders, where technology is leveraged to restore ecosystems rather than exploit them, and where education fosters emotional intelligence as much as intellectual prowess. This isn't a naive fantasy. It's a plausible trajectory if enough individuals commit to living from the clarity of an awakened heart. Of course, we must also acknowledge the resistance. Systems rooted in fear, profit and hierarchy won't dissolve without pushback. Propaganda conflict and efforts to clamp down on freedom may intensify as the old paradigm struggles to maintain its footing. Yet from a higher vantage point, these obstacles can catalyze the very unity they seek to prevent. When adversity strikes, be it a natural disaster or a political crackdown, people often find themselves banding together in community resilience. This collective resilience, born of necessity, also seeds the awareness that we are far more powerful, united, than we are divided. Looking inward, the same principle applies to your personal evolution. You may encounter internal resistance habits of self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, or deep-seated traumas that resurface when you least expect them. While disheartening, these moments also offer clarity on the final knots, preventing full alignment. By facing them head-on with compassion and resolve, you integrate fragmented parts of yourself. Step by step, your inner landscape becomes a more harmonious environment where your intentions and actions support each other rather than clash. This alignment isn't the end of growth, but it paves the way for sustained, joyful progress. Ultimately, the vision isn't a static endpoint, but an ongoing journey. The Aquarian age calls us not to finalize a perfect system, but to continually evolve our systems to match our expanding awareness. We shift from a mindset of arriving to one of becoming. Each generation adds layers of wisdom. Each personal breakthrough ripples outward. Each collective crisis challenges us to innovate anew. By holding a vision of a compassionate, abundant world, while accepting that shadows persist, we keep our hearts open to miracles without denying the work still required. In practical terms, this means staying curious, adaptable, dedicated. You don't need to champion every cause or solve every global issue. Focus on the sphere of influence where your gifts shine. Whether that sphere is your immediate family, a local grassroots project, or a global platform, approach it with the same intentionality. Seed the Aquarian values of empathy, authenticity, and collaboration into every interaction. matter how small, can germinate into something remarkable when nurtured by consistent love and a willingness to adapt. In that sense, the ultimate vision is a living tapestry woven from countless individual threads, each shimmering with the light of awakened participation. A critical piece of navigating this era is the notion of energetic sovereignty. In a world brimming with stimuli, news headlines, social media updates, collective emotional tides, it's easy to lose your center, allowing external forces to dictate your mood or your beliefs. Energetic sovereignty means cultivating the capacity to stand in your own frequency, discerning which energies are yours to process and which belong to others or to the collective. This doesn't imply disconnection from global concerns. Rather, it ensures you remain anchored in your authentic vibration while engaging with the wider world. Achieving energetic sovereignty starts with self-awareness. For instance, you might notice an unexplained heaviness after scrolling through your feed or having a heated conversation. Instead of assuming it's simply yours, you pause to check, am I carrying someone else's fear or despair? If so, gentle practices like grounding exercises, breathwork, or even visualizing a protective, energetic boundary can help you release what isn't yours to hold. Over time, this process becomes more intuitive. You learn to differentiate genuine empathy, caring compassion from enmeshment, where you internalize another's burden to the point of losing your own clarity. Societies that value hyperproductivity sometimes view self-care and energetic boundaries as selfish or indulgent. Yet from an awakened standpoint, maintaining your energetic health is vital to your ability to serve effectively. A caretaker who is perpetually drained or anxious eventually cannot care for anyone. A social activist who burns out undermines the very cause they championed. By tending to your own energy, you preserve the resilience needed to offer sustained contributions. In a sense, sovereignty is a prerequisite for authentic service. You can't pour from an empty cup. Collectively imagine the ripple effect if more individuals practiced energetic sovereignty. Fewer would be swayed by sensationalist media or polarized rhetoric. Instead, a grounded populace could respond to societal challenges with measured empathy and thoughtful action rather than frantic reactivity. This doesn't mean ignoring injustice. It means addressing it with unwavering clarity, untangled from reactionary traps. In short, energetic sovereignty fosters a type of psychic immunity, an ability to engage with collective issues without losing personal alignment. One might wonder, does sovereignty conflict with unity? Paradoxically, it does the opposite. True unity emerges from interconnected individuals who each stand in their unique power. If unity is forced, if it demands you suppress your individuality or your truth, it's not authentic unity. It's uniformity. Aquarian togetherness thrives on the interplay of distinct sovereign beings co-creating a shared reality. Each person brings a unique perspective, frequency, and gift, and these differences weave into a vibrant mosaic rather than a monochrome blend. In your personal life, practicing energetic sovereignty might look like quietly disengaging from an argument that's going nowhere, or choosing not to watch a distressing news cycle right before bed. It might mean setting clear boundaries in relationships where you communicate your needs without guilt. At first, such choices can feel radical, especially if you're used to placing others' comfort above your own well-being. Yet each act of self-respect not only replenishes you, but models a healthier way of coexisting, one where empathy and personal wholeness don't cancel each other out, but amplify each other. In this balanced, self-contained space, you remain attuned to the collective while being a stable pillar within it, a beacon of calm in a storm of competing energies. Hand in hand with sovereignty comes the art of conscious communication. The old paradigm often reduces communication to a transactional exchange of information, sometimes laced with manipulation or competition. Yet, in an Aquarian framework, communication transforms into a sacred practice, an opportunity to co-create understanding and genuine connection. This elevated approach takes root in the recognition that words carry energy. How you speak and listen can either build bridges or erect walls, soothe hearts, or inflame tensions. Conscious communication begins with mindful listening. Instead of plotting your reply while the other person talks, you offer your full presence, seeking to understand not just the content of their words, but the emotional landscape behind them. This kind of listening is rare in a world addicted to speed and multitasking. It requires patience, empathy, and curiosity. Yet the rewards are immense. When someone feels truly heard, their defenses soften. They become more receptive, and dialogues that once might have spiraled into debates transform into spaces of shared exploration. Next comes the expression of your truth. In conscious communication, you don't sugarcoat your insights or withhold them out of fear. You speak transparently but with compassion. This might involve using I statements to own your feelings rather than casting blame. Instead of, "You made me feel inferior," you might say, "I felt insecure when this happened." Such subtle shifts can diffuse defensiveness as they invite the listener into your perspective instead of accusing them. Additionally, you pay attention to tone, pace, and nonverbal cues, understanding that much of communication is conveyed beyond words. Of course, no matter how carefully you speak, miscommunications still arise, part of the human condition. But an Aquarian approach doesn't shy away from conflict. It recognizes conflict as a potential gateway to deeper understanding. When a misunderstanding surfaces, you explore it together rather than avoiding it or turning combative. You might clarify, "Let's pause and see where we diverged," or ask, "Could you tell me what you heard me say?" This process, though, it takes more time, prevents the accumulation of resentments that often poison relationships. Over the long term, it forges trust, resilience, and emotional intimacy. Technological communication channels complicate matters further. Texts and social media posts lack the nuances of tone and body language, increasing the risk of misinterpretation. Consequently, conscious communicators adapt by being extra mindful in digital interactions. They might use emoticons or clarifying statements to convey warmth or ask follow-up questions to ensure mutual understanding. They also remain aware of the addictive swirl of online debates, choosing carefully where to invest energy. A short, respectful clarification can sometimes shift the entire tone of a comment thread, yet so can a single inflammatory remark. Recognizing this power, they treat even short messages as vehicles of energy, upholding the same mindful standards they would in face-to-face exchanges. Collectively, widespread conscious communication could significantly elevate public discourse. Media outlets might focus less on polarizing soundbites and more on facilitating in-depth dialogues. Community forums might prioritize inclusive listening circles over combative town halls. In an age where misinformation proliferates rapidly, clear, empathetic communication becomes not just a personal skill, but a cornerstone of civic responsibility. When enough individuals choose to speak and listen from a place of genuine care and curiosity, the ripples spread outward, fostering a culture of mutual respect and nuanced understanding. A culture that mirrors the Aquarian ideal of synergy rather than division. Guiding all these transformative currents is a subtle but profound shift in our collective mythos, our overarching story about what it means to be human on planet Earth. Historically, we've told ourselves narratives of separation, humans battling nature, nations pitted against each other, tribes defending scarce resources. These stories, taught through textbooks, media, and cultural traditions, seep into our subconscious, shaping everything from government policies to personal aspirations. But as we awaken, we sense a deeper story struggling to be heard, a story of interconnection, where cooperation is as natural as competition, and where humans are integral parts of the web of life, rather than its rulers. Rewriting our collective mythos involves recognizing that these old stories weren't entirely false. They captured certain facets of human experience. Conflict, scarcity, and heroism do indeed feature in our history, yet they left out equally powerful truths. Epochs of peace, acts of collaboration, flashes of insight, where societies flourished in balance with the environment. The emergent myth acknowledges both the triumphs and pitfalls of the human saga, weaving them into a larger tapestry that values unity as much as individuality, compassion as much as survival. On an individual level, revising your personal narrative can be a radical act of liberation. For instance, you might have inherited a family story about hardship or unworthiness, believing deep down that abundance or self-realization wasn't your destiny. As you awaken, you question, who wrote this script, and do I still want to follow it? Slowly, you replace self-limiting plot lines with affirmations of possibility and purpose. You begin living from a place where you're not just a character in someone else's drama, but a co-author shaping each new chapter. In broader cultural terms, this shift in myth is evident in the rise of storytelling mediums that celebrate diversity, ecological wisdom, and spiritual depth. Contemporary films and novels increasingly explore themes like cosmic oneness, near-death experiences, or reincarnation concepts that decades ago were marginalized in mainstream art. Documentaries highlight regenerative agriculture, sustainable design, and cross-cultural cooperation, offering real-life examples that buck the narrative of endless conflict. Even the booming interest in fantasy or science fiction can be seen as a collective quest to imagine realms where age-old limitations are transcended, reflecting a subconscious yearning for a new kind of story here on Earth. As these fresh stories permeate culture, they become an ocean of inspiration from which policies, institutions, and everyday choices can emerge. Political frameworks might center around conflict resolution and global partnerships. Media outlets might focus on community-driven solutions. Religions, rather than competing for devotees, might celebrate each other's revelations. Schools could teach kids to collaborate on creative projects rather than drilling them in rote competition. While such a vision may sound idealistic, it gains traction each time someone chooses to embody it in their own life or art. Of course, rewriting a collective myth doesn't mean discarding hard-won lessons. It means integrating them into a more expansive framework, one that acknowledges wounds without glorifying them, that cherishes Earth as a partner rather than a commodity, and that respects personal liberty while championing communal care. Essentially, this myth tells us we are each point of consciousness within a living tapestry, a tapestry that grows more luminous each time we remember our shared origins and infinite potential. When enough of us internalize this new story, it will cease to be new at all. It will be the lens through which future generations see themselves from the very start. With this evolving mythos in mind, it's vital to address one of the core stumbling blocks for many awakened souls, the persistent comparison to others who seem more enlightened, more successful, or further along the path. Social media platforms in particular can feed this impulse as individuals curate images of their spiritual practices, worldly achievements, or personal transformations. While such content can inspire, it can just as easily spiral you into feelings of inadequacy, wondering why your progress doesn't look as polished or dramatic. Yet comparison is a trap that undermines the unique blueprint of your soul's journey. No two awakenings are identical. You carry distinct karmic lessons, personal gifts, and timing. That person who appears to have soared into cosmic bliss might be grappling with challenges you can't see. Conversely, you might quietly be embodying shifts at a deep level that aren't readily displayed in a photo or a status update. True awakening doesn't chase an external metric. It reveals your inner alignment. Even if your daily progress feels small, a moment of mindful breath here, a softening of old resentment there, these are powerful shifts that accumulate over time. Moreover, the age of Aquarius is about dissolving hierarchies that rank people by supposed spiritual merit. While mentorship and guidance remain valuable, the idea that certain individuals are universally above others in wisdom is an outdated holdover from guru-centric traditions. In the new paradigm, a teacher might illuminate one aspect of truth while simultaneously learning from a student's fresh insights or different life experiences. This fluid exchange erodes the impulse to measure yourself against any external yardstick, encouraging you to trust your own evolving process. Practically speaking, releasing comparison involves mindfulness and self-compassion. When you feel jealousy or a sense of "I'm not enough" creeping in, pause. Ask what unmet need or wound is being triggered. Is it a desire for community, a longing for recognition, or a fear of not belonging? Naming the underlying emotion can diffuse its grip, then respond with gentle care. Perhaps affirming your unique path, seeking out supportive friendships, or journaling about your authentic successes. Those quiet victories that don't always garner applause, but signify real growth. On a collective scale, a culture liberated from comparison fosters genuine collaboration. Instead of competing for spiritual capital or social popularity, individuals celebrate each other's breakthroughs, recognizing that another's expansion doesn't diminish their own. Art, music, healing modalities, and innovations flourish in this environment, each contributor shining in their own way without overshadowing anyone else. This synergy aligns perfectly with Aquarian ideals, diverse perspectives and talents mingling to uplift the whole. Comparison at its root stems from an illusion of separateness, believing someone else's gain is your loss. As we internalize the unity principle, that illusion unravels. You realize that the blossoming of another soul, far from being a threat, is a testament to what's possible for all. By honoring each journey as sacred and incomparable, you free yourself to embrace your own evolution without the baggage of external validation. In that liberated state, your growth becomes an offering to the collective, a singular note in the grand symphony of human awakening that no one else can play. For many, the final hurdle in spiritual integration is learning how to rest. In a society that equates worthiness with constant productivity, rest can seem like a luxury at best or laziness at worst. Yet genuine rest, be it physical sleep, mental downtime, or soul-level replenishment, is a cornerstone of the awakened life. It isn't about passivity. It's a deliberate phase of renewal akin to the winter season where seeds lie dormant, gathering strength for spring's exuberant growth. Rest provides the spaciousness for your nervous system to integrate energetic shifts for your mind to process emotional experiences and for your intuition to speak in the quiet. From a cosmic perspective, we see rest mirrored in planetary cycles and celestial rhythms. The moon waxes and wanes, tides ebb and flow, and solar flares come in waves. Nothing in nature sustains perpetual activity without reprieve. Humans, too, are cyclical beings, yet the industrial era ethos of time is money has distanced us from our biological and spiritual need for pause. This disconnect can manifest as chronic stress burnout or a feeling of existential numbness. Reclaiming rest, therefore, is a revolutionary act that aligns you with natural law and cosmic harmony. One practical approach is scheduling mini-retreats into your routine. Perhaps that means dedicating a Sunday to unstructured time, turning off devices, and allowing yourself to simply be. Or it might involve short daily intervals, 5 minutes of deep breathing or 15 minutes of silent reflection. While these may seem trivial, they accumulate into a pattern of honoring your inner rhythm. Over time, you'll likely find that far from reducing your effectiveness, such interludes increase your clarity and resilience. At a deeper level, rest also addresses soul fatigue, the weariness that arises from carrying unresolved traumas or existential anxieties. Spiritual breakthroughs can be exhausting in their own right. Releasing old identities and integrating new insights demands energy. When you neglect rest after significant internal shifts, you risk fragmenting your growth. By contrast, restful practices like a dedicated meditation retreat or even a contemplative walk in nature let the pieces settle into coherence. You emerge with a more grounded embodiment of your revelations. The resistance to rest often springs from fear of what might surface in stillness. Without the bustle of tasks or distractions, old wounds or uncomfortable emotions may come forward. This is part of the healing process. True rest doesn't just rejuvenate the body. It gently unveils what's been tucked away, providing an opportunity for deeper clearing. Embracing rest, therefore, is also embracing courage. The courage to face yourself without the armor of busyness. On a collective plane, imagine communities that value rest as a shared norm. Workplaces could adopt flexible schedules, acknowledging that productivity follows when employees are truly refreshed. Educational systems might balance intense study periods with meaningful breaks, teaching children the value of introspection as part of their learning cycle. In such an environment, stress-related illnesses could diminish creativity, could flourish, and a more humane pace of life could become the rule rather than the exception. Aligning with these rhythms supports the broader Aquarian Vision 1, in which humanity respects both the outer demands of progress and the inner call for renewal. The paradox of rest is that by doing less, you often achieve a state of deeper presence and authenticity, a result that can surpass any flurry of hurried action. As you integrate rest-conscious communication, energetic sovereignty, and all the other facets of Aquarian living, it's natural to wonder what your role in the grand tapestry might look like going forward. This question underscores a concept often referenced in metaphysical circles: timeline convergence. The idea is that while infinite possible futures exist, certain timelines gain momentum based on collective choices. You are continuously co-creating reality, whether you realize it or not, through your intentions, emotions, and actions. When you align your personal energy with higher potentials, love, unity, creativity, you magnetize experiences that reflect that alignment, and you also help reinforce that timeline for the collective. In practical terms, this might feel like a growing ease or synchronicity in your life. As you choose compassion over judgment, opportunities that match that frequency appear. Friendships deepen, projects unfold more smoothly, and new doors open in unforeseen ways. Conversely, if you revert to old patterns of fear or cynicism, you may notice a contraction in possibility, as if you've shifted into a less expansive corridor of experience. Neither choice is wrong, but each choice shapes the path you walk. From a collective standpoint, enough individuals consistently choosing love and authenticity can tip the scale toward a more harmonious future. It's not about forced optimism or denying real-world issues. It's about maintaining faith in humanity's capacity to adapt and transcend. Each personal breakthrough, each act of grace contributes to what some call critical mass. This threshold phenomenon suggests that when a certain percentage of the population internalizes a particular insight or behavior, it spontaneously spreads through the collective psyche. Historical examples like the rapid global adoption of certain social justice movements hint at this phenomenon in action. Yet timeline convergence doesn't guarantee a utopian outcome overnight. It's more like an ongoing referendum on what humanity collectively believes is possible. Forces of inertia persist, fueled by fear, greed, or ignorance. But the awakened soul perceives these forces not as invincible foes, but as signposts highlighting where healing is needed. By addressing those pockets of darkness through compassion, activism, or creative solutions, you help transmute them into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Over time, these local transformations scale up into broader cultural shifts. As you personally navigate this dynamic, consider adopting practices that heighten your discernment of where you're aligning your energy. Journaling or regular check-ins can help you notice patterns. Are you gravitating towards circles that fuel negativity or drama? Or are you finding shared visions with people who inspire and uplift you? Do your daily routines feed your vitality or deplete it? Such inquiries guide you in realigning with the timelines that reflect your highest aspirations. With each conscious choice, you pivot onto pathways that resonate with an evolved version of yourself, and by extension, an evolving society. Ultimately, timeline convergence reminds you that the future isn't fixed. Even in the face of daunting global challenges, you retain agency, both personally and collectively. The Aquarian age calls for radical responsibility, recognizing that you're no mere spectator in life, but a participant shaping reality. By focusing your energy on what you do want to see rather than lamenting what you don't, you amplify the signals that usher those preferred timelines into tangible form. Thus, every day becomes a fresh opportunity to vote with your frequency, deciding moment by moment which reality you'll contribute to weaving. The more aligned you are with love, insight, and creative possibility, the more you help steer the planetary journey toward a horizon of awakened co-creation. In the process of weaving these higher timelines, community emerges as an essential container for growth. While personal awakening can initially feel like a solitary quest, meditating in silence, journaling your experiences, the real test of any spiritual evolution is how it holds up in relationship to others. Coming together in community allows you to witness your blind spots, to receive support when you stumble, and to amplify collective intentions in a way that solitary practice seldom achieves. Communities of the Aquarian age don't necessarily mimic traditional communes or monastic orders, though some may. They can be as simple as a weekly circle where people gather to share vulnerabilities and breakthroughs, or an online group dedicated to communal learning and healing. The unifying factor is a shared commitment to authenticity, empathy, and mutual upliftment. Roles within these communities tend to be fluid rather than hierarchical. Someone might lead a meditation one week, then learn from another member's expertise the next. Decision-making often leans toward consensus, reflecting the Aquarian value of distributed authority. One advantage of such community structures is the opportunity for real-time feedback. If you're struggling with a pattern of self-doubt, others can lovingly reflect when they see you dim your light. If you've come upon a breakthrough in shadow work, you can model vulnerability, encouraging others to dig deeper. This reciprocal exchange accelerates personal growth. It also forges bonds rooted in genuine connection rather than the transactional or surface-level dynamics that characterize many modern relationships. From a larger perspective, these micro-communities function as nodes in a growing network of light. Imagine a global web of groups, each fostering coherence in their local sphere, yet connected online to like-minded circles around the world. Such a network can mobilize quickly in response to crises, sending supplies, raising funds, or offering emotional solidarity. It can also incubate innovations, environmental projects, social initiatives, artistic collaborations that might later scale into more formal institutions. The synergy of multiple small groups, each operating from a place of awakened consciousness, can rival the impact of large-scale organizations mired in old paradigms. Of course, no community is immune to conflict or challenges. The difference in an awakened collective is the willingness to confront discord openly using conscious communication tools and shared values as anchors. Rather than letting unresolved tensions fester, members see conflict as an opportunity to evolve. The group might pause to process underlying issues, ensuring that the resolution fosters deeper trust rather than a superficial truce. This approach doesn't mean harmony at all times. It means a continual process of repair and renewal that strengthens the communal fabric. Ultimately, community in the Aquarian sense is less about the structure, urban co-housing online networks, spiritual congregations, and more about the shared intention to evolve in unity. Each gathering becomes a crucible for transformation, where the collective field amplifies individual insights, and individual insights feed back into the collective. Such synergy multiplies the light, weaving a living tapestry of support that can buoy each participant through the ebbs and flows of awakening. In a world still navigating separation, these communities stand as beacons, proving that cooperation, respect, and love aren't just ideals, but living realities when hearts and minds unite in conscious purpose. Alongside the flowering of conscious communities, we also observe a deepening reverence for ancestral and indigenous wisdom. In many cultures, the march of modernization trampled indigenous practices and marginalized ancestral lineages, relegating them to dusty footnotes in history books or romanticized portrayals in media. Yet, in the shifting energies of the Aquarian age, there's a growing awareness that such wisdom traditions hold keys to harmonious coexistence with nature, holistic healing, and communal living, precisely the areas where modern societies often struggle. Whether it's the shamanic knowledge of Amazonian tribes, the land stewardship of Native American communities, or the herbal medicine traditions of African, Asian, or Celtic cultures, these practices remind us that humanity thrived for millennia before industrialization. They offer models of balance where spiritual beliefs and daily life interwove seamlessly, Ceremonies for planting, harvest, birth, and death honored the sacred cycles that sustain life. Healing wasn't limited to the body. It addressed the mind as spirit and social context. In an era increasingly seeking integrated solutions, these indigenous frameworks resonate powerfully. At a personal level, exploring ancestral wisdom can mean reconnecting with your own lineage. You might trace your roots, unearthing family traditions or folk healing practices lost to time. Doing so can provide a sense of identity and belonging, especially if you felt uprooted by modern mobility. Yet this exploration also demands humility and respect, particularly if you're drawn to traditions outside your immediate ancestry. Cultural appropriation remains a concern when sacred rituals or artifacts are taken out of context for personal gain or aesthetic appeal. The Aquarian approach calls for genuine reciprocity. Learn from elders and carriers of these traditions, support their communities, and integrate their teachings with reverence and acknowledgement. From a collective standpoint, indigenous wisdom can guide efforts to reforest land, rehabilitate polluted waterways, and design sustainable agriculture. Projects inspired by permaculture or biodynamics echo ancient principles of working with rather than against natural processes. Some governments are even consulting indigenous leaders in environmental policymaking, recognizing their deep understanding of local ecologies. This is a heartening sign that the pendulum of exploitation may be swinging back toward collaboration and respect. Yet it's crucial not to romanticize the past. Indigenous communities aren't monolithic or immune to their own challenges. Many grapple with poverty, political disenfranchisement, and the lingering traumas of colonization. The invitation here is to move beyond a superficial fascination with tribal wisdom and into a space of genuine allyship, amplifying indigenous voices, supporting sovereignty movements, and standing with them in preserving threatened lands. In this sense, bridging ancestral teachings and modern innovation becomes a two-way street. Indigenous knowledge provides ethical and ecological insights. Technology can bring scalable solutions to urgent problems. The synergy of both can yield a future that honors tradition while embracing progress. In essence, reconnecting with ancestral and indigenous wisdom is part of the broader Aquarian narrative of integration. We integrate mind and body science and spirituality, local roots, and global interconnectedness. By anchoring ourselves in the perennial wisdom that has guided humans for countless generations, we gain a stable foundation amid rapid change. We also heal historical wounds, making amends for colonization and exploitation by ushering in an era of mutual respect and shared stewardship. The result is a tapestry of human expression that's richer, wiser, and more attuned to the living earth we all call home. With so many threads, community building, ancestral wisdom, integrative health, new economic models, it's important to remember that the Aquarian shift unfolds at its own organic pace. Patience becomes an ally. It's tempting, once awakened, to want everyone around you to also see through the illusions. Perhaps you've tried to share insights with friends or family, only to meet with skepticism or disinterest. This can spark frustration or isolation, as if you're living in a different reality from the people you love. Yet part of embodying higher consciousness is honoring each soul's free will and timing. Just as a seed germinates only when conditions are right, each person's awakening process aligns with their unique soul path. Pressuring or proselytizing often backfires, eliciting defensiveness rather than curiosity. A more graceful approach is to lead by quiet example, allowing the calm and coherence you radiate to speak for itself. Over time, some might grow curious about your inner peace or positive shifts, asking questions when they feel ready. Simultaneously, practicing patience with the collective is crucial. Systemic change, be it in governance, education, or economic structures, rarely happens overnight. While crises can accelerate transformations, entrenched interests and old patterns don't vanish instantly. Witnessing the slow grind of bureaucracy or the cyclical nature of politics can be disheartening. Yet each victory, even if partial, lays the groundwork for future leaps. Historical movements for civil rights, environmental protection, and social equity all attest that progress often comes in waves, each building on the last, until a tipping point is reached. This patience isn't passive resignation. It's an active trust in the unfolding process, coupled with sustained effort toward the vision you hold. Think of it as patient determination. You engage consistently with your chosen sphere of influence, perhaps by volunteering, innovating, or teaching while releasing attachment to instant results. This mindset keeps your energy clean-free from bitterness and burnout. You learn to celebrate incremental milestones, recognizing that each step, however small, contributes to the collective momentum. Moreover, patience is self-care in disguise. By not demanding that everything and everyone transform at your pace, you spare yourself the stress of perpetual urgency. Instead, you can channel that energy into refining your gifts, deepening your empathy, and cultivating joy qualities that ironically make you more effective in creating positive change. Patience also opens the door to divine timing, those serendipitous moments when everything aligns and breakthroughs occur effortlessly. Perhaps the greatest lesson in patience is learning to coexist with the tension between your inner, knowing that a brighter reality is possible, and the outer evidence that it's not yet here. Holding this tension without collapsing into apathy or despair is a hallmark of spiritual maturity. It signifies that you're anchoring a future possibility in the now, acting as a conduit for energies that have yet to fully materialize. Even if you can't see the final picture, you trust that your piece of the puzzle matters. In essence, patience acts like the yin to your yang of purposeful action. It balances your drive to contribute by reminding you that the cosmic tapestry weaves threads in a pattern far more elaborate and subtle than any single one of us can orchestrate. Embracing patience doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you release the need to control every outcome, thus allowing life's inherent intelligence to reveal a more harmonious path forward. In the midst of practicing patience, it's also important to honor your continuing evolution. Sometimes, once you've tasted the fruits of awakening, be it an expanded sense of compassion or a heightened intuitive ability, there's a temptation to rest on your laurels as if you've arrived. Yet the very nature of consciousness is infinite expansion. Each epiphany opens the door to deeper layers of inquiry and experience. Your capacity for love, creativity, and wisdom can always stretch further. This ceaseless unfolding can be thrilling or daunting depending on your perspective. Thrilling because it means there's no limit to the magic and wonder you can encounter. Daunting because it means spiritual growth isn't a box you check off, but a lifelong dance. You may go through cycles of rapid expansion followed by plateau periods where little seems to happen. These plateaus aren't failures. They're integration phases, allowing your newly acquired insights to settle and become second nature before the next wave of growth arrives. To navigate these cycles gracefully, it helps to cultivate a beginner's mind. Approach each day as if you know very little, remaining open to fresh revelations. This stance dismantles the ego's need to label yourself as enlightened or advanced. It also encourages humility in relating to others. Even those who are just starting their spiritual journey may reflect truths you've overlooked. By listening and learning collaboratively, you sustain the momentum of your own awakening while supporting theirs. Another key is to diversify your avenues of learning and growth. Perhaps you began with meditation or yoga, but now feel drawn to creative arts, astrology, or social activism. Trust these impulses. They often indicate where your soul's curriculum is leading you. Engaging multiple disciplines keeps your evolution well-rounded. It avoids the pitfall of becoming lopsided, highly evolved in meditation but neglecting relational skills, or active in community service but lacking inward reflection. Additionally, pay attention to shifts in your emotional landscape. Emotions can act as signposts signaling where your next lesson lies. An untriggered sense of euphoria might mean you're accessing higher vibrational states, which you can integrate by journaling or sharing with supportive peers. Conversely, a sudden wave of anxiety or anger can indicate the surfacing of dormant issues. As painful as these flare-ups might be, they're opportunities for deeper healing. You can engage in shadow work therapy or conscious communication with loved ones to address what arises. Ultimately, honoring your ongoing evolution is about accepting that you are forever a student of life. The Aquarian age doesn't bring a finish line, but an invitation to co-create reality with ever-increasing mastery and nuance. Celebrating small breakthroughs is healthy. Just remember that each milestone is a stepping stone, not a final destination. In this perpetual student mindset, you remain adaptable, curious, and open to surprises, qualities that keep your spirit alive. When faced with moments of discouragement, like feeling stuck or regressing into old habits, revisit how far you've come. A decade, a year, or even a month ago, you might have handled challenges very differently. Acknowledge the subtler shifts. Perhaps now you bounce back faster from setbacks, or you're kinder to yourself in moments of error. These incremental changes, when seen over time, affirm that your evolution is ongoing, substantial, and worthy of celebration. As you embrace the reality that awakening is a journey without end, you transform potential restlessness into perpetual wonder, setting the stage for continuous discovery of the vast horizons within your being. Arriving at the final paragraph of this extensive exploration, you might sense both the enormity and the intimacy of the path ahead. We stand collectively in a liminal space, a bridge between the collapsing structures of the past and the emergent possibilities of the future. You, as an individual soul, hold a luminous thread in this grand tapestry, weaving your unique frequency into a design that is still taking shape. The call of the Aquarian age is neither a promise of instant perfection nor a dismissal of the immense challenges before us. Rather, it's a clarion invitation to remember your cosmic origins, your interconnection with all life, and the latent brilliance that hums in your bones. In practical terms, this remembrance translates into daily choices: the foods you eat, the words you speak, the causes you champion, the people you surround yourself with. Each choice, though seemingly small, is a vote cast for the kind of reality you wish to inhabit. And these votes add up not merely in a cumulative sense, but in a geometric one, amplifying at key moments when collective synergy ignites. Your consistent acts of kindness, creativity, and courage become the sparks that encourage others to step forward in their own authenticity. Should despair ever creep in, whether from personal setbacks or from witnessing global strife, recall that you're not walking alone. Countless others, many of whom you'll never meet, are quietly anchoring love, justice, and innovation in their corners of the world. This global groundswell of awakened hearts forms an invisible network that transcends geographic and cultural boundaries. Whenever you feel your light dim, reaching out to this network, even via a message of vulnerability, can rekindle your flame. We rise together, not in uniformity, but in the harmony of diverse voices, all tuned to the frequency of transformation. And so, as you continue forward, may you do so with a heart that is both tender and mighty. Tender enough to feel the world's suffering, to hold empathy for those still locked in fear, and to approach your own imperfections with grace. Mighty enough to stand unwavering in your truth, to create boldly where creation is needed, and to resist the pull of old narratives that reduce life to competition and survival. This dynamic balance is the sweet spot of the Aquarian pilgrim, soft yet strong, compassionate yet unyielding, visionary yet grounded. With these words, our shared exploration draws to a close, yet the real story of your awakening unfolds each day you greet the sunrise. May the insights gleaned here serve as signposts on your journey, not as rigid doctrines, but as gentle reminders of who you truly are, a radiant co-creator in an evolving cosmos. Carry this torch of remembrance back into your life, illuminating whatever darkness you find there. Trust that the seeds you plant today in your thoughts, your relationships, your creations will blossom in due season. And when doubt arises, let these final words echo in the chambers of your soul. You were born on time, chosen for this era of metamorphosis. You contain within you the codes that this pivotal moment in history requires. Keep going, keep becoming, and never forget you're here on purpose. Looking back on this journey, it's clear now, life's greatest wisdom often comes packaged in moments we least expect. Every hardship faced, every moment of joy, and every step into the unknown has shaped who we are today. For me personally, witnessing how vulnerability and courage can open doors to genuine transformation has been incredibly uplifting. It's a reminder that no matter how uncertain the path ahead may seem, there's always a deeper meaning waiting to unfold if we're willing to embrace it. Now I'd really love to hear from you. Did something specific resonate deeply, or maybe spark a new insight in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories, experiences, and wisdom truly enrich our community, and I'm excited to continue this meaningful conversation together. Let's keep inspiring each other